All right, guys, kind of a somber night here with the last Tuesday night edition of the college football playoff rankings. No surprises at all. I think ESPN was really pissed off that it's kind of turning out this way. There's really no drama. They seemed rather angry tonight. But guys, Georgia at number 1 over Michigan. I think it was done for a few reasons. I was just thinking this. If you're Michigan, would you really even want to be 1 at this point anyways? I would much rather face TCU in the semifinals than USC just because of Caleb Williams and how dangerous he is. So I don't even know if I would want to move up if I'm Michigan, but they did reference it on the show. They're not going to want a semifinal rematch, or at least honestly, it would be good for ratings, but I guess they don't want it, between Ohio State and Michigan. So the idea is if USC loses, Ohio State moves to number 4. They face Georgia. They don't face Michigan at number 1. Michigan faces TCU. You've got Michigan at number 2. You've got TCU at number 3. Just a quick thing I would say about TCU and how they kind of spun the narrative with TCU. I don't think it's necessarily as cut and dry as, TCU has to lose 50-0 to be knocked out of the playoffs. I think if it's a semi-blowout, like a 3-score game, TCU would get knocked out. Obviously, if it's a close loss, because they already beat Kansas State, because Kansas State was ranked inside the top 10, it'd be very tough to move TCU out. But they made it seem like, oh my God, TCU could lose 30-0 and they'd still be in. That's not correct. When you look at TCU's game control and things like that, all these games at the end of the season, or all these games where they barely win, they come back, that is not conducive of a really, really elite team. But you do have to give them credit for going undefeated, and close loss or a win, and they're in. And then you've got USC at number 4, and we all know the situation with that. If they win, they're in. If they lose, Ohio State is in. Ohio State at number 5, Alabama at number 6. That was kind of the other drama, other than maybe Michigan being ranked number 1. I guess, there was also drama. Would they put Tennessee over Alabama? So I don't even know if it was drama, but they were trying to say, would Alabama be in front of Ohio State? And obviously that's not the case. There's a number of reasons why that's flawed. Number 1, Ohio State has better wins. Number 2, Alabama has 2 losses. Ohio State has 1 loss. So not only does Ohio State have better wins, they have less losses, right? It's not like we're talking about 11-1 versus 11-1. This is that crazy Alabama bias. This is the only way around it when it's so cut and dry. You literally have one team that's 11-1. Alabama's 10-2, and we still have people arguing that Alabama should be or should be above the 11-1 team, even though the 11-1 team has better wins. The Penn State win, the Notre Dame win. So it is such horrible bias. The only way around it is to where it's because imagine if Alabama was 11-1 right now. I don't think there'd be a question. They would be 5 spots ahead of Ohio State. So you're battling so much bias here, but Ohio State, we go through the fake arguments, and Ohio State ends up at number 5, Alabama at number 6. Of course, looking at the rest of the rankings, by the way, I do like what Kirk Herbstreit said. Ohio State should not be in the Rose Bowl. What they should do is they should put Penn State in the Rose Bowl and Ohio State in the Orange Bowl. 100% I agree with that. But they have Tennessee at number 7. So, Tennessee fans very angry that they're not in front of Alabama. It's due to the quarterback injury. I would say at this point, considering neither of these teams have a chance at the playoff, they would certainly, if Hendon Hooker was healthy, they would give the nod to Tennessee and put Tennessee in front of Alabama, just based off of precedent, based off of that massive win that Tennessee got over Alabama in the epic 52-49 game. But it's due to the quarterback injury. That's it. And then you have Penn State at number 8. So what a season Penn State's had. They look like a lock for a New Year's Six Bowl no matter what. Clemson at number 9. They're going to have to beat North Carolina, I believe, to make a New Year's Six Bowl. If they lose to North Carolina will make it. And then you've got Kansas State at number 10. Of course, Kansas State being number 10 is very huge for TCU because TCU has already beaten Kansas State. And that's why they push the whole narrative. If they lose, they're still in. Yeah, I mean, if it's close enough, I'm guessing TCU. Listen, I'm gonna look at all the resumes and things like that. I'm gonna have to look at all of that. I think their overall narrative, again, that TCU can lose 40-0 and still make it is ridiculous. But we're going to let the game play out and then see what the data says after TCU plays in that game versus Kansas State. But it is good for TCU. You wanted Kansas State as ranked as high as possible, and number 10 is a very good spot for them to be. Utah at number 11. Of course, Utah faces USC. We'll see what happens. Utah right now 3-point underdogs in that game against USC. Certainly Ohio State needs Utah to win. There's no other way to look at it. And you know what? We have confidence in Utah. If there was one team that I could pick, from the Pac-12 to beat to beat USC, it would be Utah. Utah has been, their season got ruined by that week 1 loss against Florida. They've been one of the more consistent teams, one of the more dominant teams when it comes to taking care of business and destroying the other Pac-12 teams. I know they have 3 losses. I get it. But there's a lot of confidence that Utah is going to be able to beat USC, guys. A lot of confidence from a lot of college football experts and people that know. A lot of people think Utah is going to beat USC. So that is some news there. Washington at number 12. Guys, I mean, listen, they're 10-2. Certainly, they're 10-2. They have a really bad defense. They've got a fun offense. Put them in the Rose Bowl against Penn State. It would be a very fun game to watch. Certainly. Florida State at number 13. Great team. They deserve it as well. They are definitely a top 15. I've said it for 3 weeks now. They're a top 15 team. They finally rank them that high. LSU falls to 14. I just think it's a situation you've got to put LSU somewhere. They have 3 losses. They're 9-3. They made the SEC championship game. We respect that. Oregon State at 15. So they put Oregon State in front of Oregon, and I'll be honest, I completely disagree with this. So the issue a lot of casual people have when it comes to rankings and head-to-heads and things like that is they say, well, Oregon State beat Oregon, so they should automatically be in front of them. Number one, the game is not being played at a neutral site, right? You have to take that into account. Number two, Oregon totally controlled that game. They lost late. This is nothing against Oregon State, but I'm just saying you have to. There's a lot of factors that go into it. It's like when people say, "Oh, Michigan destroyed Ohio State." You really need to watch the game and understand the context and realize it was a 4-point game in the fourth quarter, and Ohio State allowed 2 80-yard rushing touchdowns on complete, busts there at the end. So there's a lot of factors that go into it. UCLA at number 17. I like UCLA a lot. Tulane at number 18. They are fighting for a New Year's Six Bowl. We will see. I know their head coach, their head coach is not going to be the new head coach of Georgia Tech, or at least he shouldn't. South Carolina gets number 19. We can respect that. They've had a great run with these 2 wins. Texas at number 20. They've had a good season even with the 4 losses. Notre Dame falls down to number 21. That doesn't surprise me. They've got 4 losses. UCF at number 22. They're also fighting for a New Year's Six Bowl. North Carolina, they've really struggled. They're down at number 23. Mississippi State gets ranked after beating Ole Miss. And then NC State. Kind of just disappointing UTSA didn't get ranked, I'm not going to lie. But NC State's had a nice year after the Devin Leary injury. And then, guys, I thought this would be a fun thing to kind of analyze and look at. This would be the 12-team playoff. This is what we should be getting, not next year, but possibly the year after next year. You guys can see it. It's a completely different vibe. There would be so much more energy. We were watching that show tonight, and it looked like a total morgue. ESPN was so dejected. This would be so much life. There would be so many fan bases that would be vibrant. The campuses would be buzzing. Penn State would be hosting a playoff game against Clemson. Ohio State gets Tulane at home. Tennessee gets Kansas State with a backup quarterback. That's an interesting matchup. Alabama gets Utah at home. Winner faces TCU. This is definitely a more professional style of doing a playoff system. And I just think, You look at the rankings show tonight, and really, it's so depressing. It's so sad. It's like we're watching a funeral. I mean, nobody, this is what we really need. We're looking at it right now. We're looking at the future format of college football, and you're looking at a path right there, and I'm liking Ohio State's path. I mean, I'm seeing a Tulane team. That's an easy win. You're beating USC, who's been fraudulent all year. And you know what? With Michigan, they've got a pretty easy path too. Maybe Alabama, they've got an easy path, possibly beating TCU. But you know what? This is what college football needs to be. There needs to be more teams. There needs to be more energy in the sport. And right now, we are dying, and we're really going out with a whimper. It's sad, but it is what it is. And we're hoping with the big push and the incentive of $500 million, we will get the playoff expanded by 2024. And guys, remember, you're going to see a lot of casual people arguing that they should stay at 4 teams. Those people don't know what they're talking about. They don't understand. Alabama's New Year's Six game is going to be meaningless. Remember, the New Year's Six games are supposed to be the biggest games of the year. Alabama will not be playing Bryce Young. Or Bryce Young will be sitting out. Will Anderson will be sitting out. Their entire secondary will be sitting out. C.J. Stroud, if he's not in the playoffs, will be sitting out. Paris Johnson Jr. will be sitting out. But no, let's keep it at 4 teams and watch this morgue where these guys look like they're about to send flowers and kill the college football scene because they're so pissed there's nothing to talk about and there's only 4 fan bases left. With really anything here except maybe Ohio State if USC loses. So I'm also kind of interesting that ESPN, this is a fun narrative to push. USC loses and Kansas State gets crushed. Does Alabama get in? Ohio State possibly moves to the 3 seed. Does Alabama get in if TCU gets crushed by Kansas State? And then maybe they would subsist, something happens with an injury. I don't know. But I'm surprised they didn't push that narrative because they seemed real dejected tonight. But maybe they've been told TCU's in no matter what. I don't know. But we will see, guys. Either way, that's going to do it for this video, guys. Make sure you're following me on Twitter. Link to that's always in the description.